Hello, and welcome to Knitsy Nails. My name is Amy, and I've been knitting for about 8 years and crocheting for almost 30. As we start a new year, I like to think about what goals that I am setting for myself to expand my knitting knowledge in 2025. So here are my top 10 goals for 2025. First, I would like to learn some new sweater constructions and just make some sweaters for myself. I've been knitting for almost a decade, but I've never actually finished a knit sweater. I've done a few crocheted sweaters, but those take a lot less time, and I just am more experienced at crochet, so I am more comfortable crocheting a sweater. I'm almost done with my first sweater that I will actually finish, which is a seamless raglan worked flat. It's the ballerina wrap by 2 of Wands. This has been super great, but I want to learn some more construction methods. I would like to do at least one raglan pullover that's done all in one piece with no seaming. I'm really interested in some of the colorwork yoke sweaters, and I am especially interested in seamed methods. I have some experience with sewing, so I'm not feeling daunted by the act of having to seam a sweater together. I think a lot of the cardigan patterns in particular that I am seeing that I really want to make are seamed, and I think that that would be honestly maybe even an easier thing for me to actually force myself to finish, because each individual piece is smaller than on a seamless top-down construction. My second main goal is to release some patterns. I've been very good about writing down patterns that I've created this year, but I've not really gone through the process of actually releasing one. It can be kind of daunting to think of all of the things that you have to do to have a finished, released pattern, such as typing it out, getting it tech edited, calling for testers and running a test, and getting everything formatted correctly in ways that would be accessible to multiple different people. But I plan to tackle this year. The best way to learn is to challenge yourself and do things that are daunting and scary. This rainbow half pie shawl is likely going to be the first pattern that I release. I made this one for myself out of a neon rainbow mini skein set that I got at a fiber festival in October, and I'm planning on making another one for my sister in a more muted color and some lighter weight yarn. It doesn't actually really get cold enough to wear a full wool shawl where she lives, so I typically make things for her in a bamboo or a cotton or a linen. I think that making a second one based on the pattern that I have written down is going to be very useful for me to determine where I may have made a mistake or where I have instructions floating around in my brain but not actually written down for other people to follow. My third big goal is to do some charity knitting. I've recently learned about an organization called Knit the Rainbow, who collects and distributes hand-knit winter wear to homeless LGBTQ+ youth. Everyone in my family already has more knitwear from me than they could possibly use, but I want to continue creating, so I figured I might as well give back to my community. 2024, I rid myself of the guilt of knitting for myself and not knitting entirely for the people in my life, and not feeling like I had to hand make all of the Christmas presents and all of the birthday presents for every one of my loved ones. So now that I feel better not always giving all of my knitting to people that I love, I feel that I can knit for the people who are in need. I feel that I can give back to a community that is underserved and needs just a reminder that they are loved and there are people who care about them. So I'm very excited to work with Knit the Rainbow this year. Somewhat related to my goal regarding different sweater constructions, I really want to work from more vintage and antique patterns this year, a lot of which are seamed. I love Project Gutenberg and the Antique Pattern Library, but I've only ever used the crochet patterns from there, not any of the knitting ones. I want to challenge myself to make especially some Victorian sweaters from the Victorian era, and not just Victorian inspired. I know that there's going to be quite a bit of reworking that these patterns will need, which I think will challenge me well. A lot of these patterns are extremely bare bones, and they're usually only in one size, or the size isn't really specified ever. They tend to assume that there is a baseline knowledge that anyone who is reading this book would already have, so they don't handhold you through the knitting math or how to create the different stitches. So I'm excited for that challenge to myself. My fifth main goal is to shop my stash more. Like most fiber artists, I have so much yarn that is just sitting and that I need to use. I especially want to get through all of my acrylic scraps because there are some skeins in there that have moved with me 5 or 6 times at this point, and I want to be rid of them. I'm working on just a scrap granny square crocheted blanket with them that hopefully will use up all of them. If not, I will have to figure out something else to do. I also have quite a few single skeins of sock yarn that I've had for years, but have never really found the right project for. They are hand-dyed beauties that I bought that may have been the only one in the store. They're one of a kind. Or they're just expensive enough that I could really only justify buying a single skein. But they've just been sitting in a box waiting for the perfect project that has never come. I'm planning on making a lot of those single skeins into socks for Knit the Rainbow. A related goal is to dye more of my yarn. A not insubstantial amount of my yarn is just blank undyed yarn, because I go back and forth on the idea of starting a yarn business, but I feel that I need to practice dyeing techniques more before that's even a possibility. I also don't really have space for that right now, as I have to dye all of my yarn when my partner is at work, because it has an odor. I don't really mind because I have beautiful hand-dyed yarn that I did myself when I am done, but he, understandably, does not enjoy being in the house when it is full of a scent combination that can only be described as hot vinegar and wet sheep. It is not pleasant, but it's worth it for me. We are likely buying a house in 2025, and so I'm hoping to have a shed or a garage or a basement or something where I will be able to dedicate yarn dyeing space without gassing him out of the house. Goal number 7 is to work on some mystery knit-alongs. I've been watching people make the Stephen West mystery knit-along shawls for a couple of years now, and I want in. I considered trying it in 2024, but I was deep into gift knitting when it was starting, and I didn't feel ready using any of the techniques that he tends to use. I've never done any brioche, and a lot of Stephen West designs use a lot of brioche. So I'm pushing myself to start learning all of these techniques that he tends to use so that I am ready for the 2025 Stephen West mystery shawl. I'm also currently trying to decide which year-long mystery knit-along I want to make. I'm leaning towards one of the blankets, but I'm still not completely sure. Related to that, I want to learn more colorwork techniques. I've done a little bit of Fair Isle or stranded colorwork, but I'd really like to get more adept at it. I'm also very interested in learning intarsia or ladderback jacquard, just to have more techniques in my tool belt. For intarsia, I'm thinking of trying this free checkered vest pattern from Yarnspirations. I know it is based on the Wednesday show, so it's not exactly in trend anymore, but it is very much up my alley. I love a black and white checkered moment. Relatedly, I'm also interested in learning some brioche. Like I said, I've never tried it before. I've never really been brave enough to try it before, but this year that will change. I have a vision in my head involving working 2 strands of the same ombre yarn from opposite ends for a shawl or a cowl or something like that. That will also play into the dyeing more of my undyed yarn, because I feel that I should make like a double-stranded sock blank and dye the ombre on that so that I know that both strands will change at the exact same rate. My 9th main goal, that will probably take precedence over a lot of these, is to make a baby blanket. We have a friend who is having a baby in the spring, and I already have all of the yarn to make a baby blanket for them. I just haven't started it yet. I made a very simple garter stitch blanket with super bulky Bernat blanket yarn for their first child, but this time I got a beautiful ombre set of cotton sock weight yarn from Hobby. I'm a lot faster than I was 2 years ago, so I don't think this will be much of an issue. But it will be the biggest project that I've ever done with sock weight yarn. And finally, as I mentioned before, my partner and I are planning on buying a house in the summer, so I want to make some home decor for it. I'm especially interested in a lot of the vintage lace curtain patterns, but of course I can't start on them until I know exactly how big our windows are going to be. I'd also like to make some pillows, maybe some wall hangings, just stuff to make our house a home. And I'm very excited to start on that. Are you sharing any of the same knitting goals for 2025? Do you have anything completely different that you're excited to talk about? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.